Okay. So Rick, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure after these almost 9 years that I have the chance to be at North Point with personal training at the moment. Now we changed the name.
That's right.
I've been doing a couple of chats with people that were in the same experience with me when I was in the States. In this case, learning all your methodology and all your training system in the part of the personal training. I think, if I'm not wrong, you were like one of the first guys to have this concept of small group training and personal training in a different. So getting away of the big chains and the big gyms that you're used to have. For us, it's 9 years that we have been there, was the big moment that we had contact with small group training and that people having a training system and all the steps you have to do in personal training. And through this quarantine, I've been speaking and as you see in Instagram, lots of speaking about performance on the performance side, but less speaking on the side of the personal training. And when we can get more money is on the personal training, not with athletes.
Right.
So
right.
Can you explain just like in a brief thing, like your process, like not personal training, Alloy, and all the big business that you build in these last years?
Sure. So we opened originally, Carlos, in 1992, and we were just a personal training only facility. So it was just one-on-one training at that point. So, just one coach with one client. And then every time we had a new client, we had to have a new coach. And it still worked because personal training was new.
With my kid, wait a second. Watch. Come. Sorry. Let's go.
No worries, man. I get it. Like we were just talking about this before we started recording about Carlos's situation. He's in an apartment with 2 little kids. It's like
exactly
2 months of quarantine. Like I feel for you, man.
No worries.
I couldn't do it. Like from college, and her boyfriend's over now, and it's like even that I'm just like, oh, and I love those guys. They're easy, and we have a big space right now, so it works out fine. But I get it. So just kind of recanting like our history. We opened in 1992 as personal training only. I had been working at big health clubs, and they had personal trainers in those clubs, but not much. But we thought, well, I was kind of traveling around to different clubs and different people's homes to pay my bills, and I was paying my way through university. And so I thought, well, it'd be great if I could bring everybody into one space and create a customer experience around just personal training. And no one was really doing it at the time. So we opened in 92 as one-on-one, and we went really well for probably 8 to 10 years. And then personal training caught on and more people were doing it. So we were kind of the first ones, which was good because if you're first to market, it's always good to be first. As I think Henry Ford said that right about cars. It's like, it's always good to be first. And then we developed the first boot camp in our area, which is what we called it at the time, which was just 20 people in a room getting sweaty, And then we moved our one-on-one personal training. We were doing both boot camps and personal training. And we moved the one-on-one personal training to something that we call small group personal training. And that is really 4 to 6 people working out with one trainer and still being able to deliver personal training, right? And I tell you what, we got a lot of the ideas on how to do that, Carlos, from your world, right? Which is the sports performance world. If you look at athletes, it's like you might take a sport, of athletes, and it's like, okay, they're male, they play a contact sport. This is the time of the year that they're in, whether it's in season, off season. And then you kind of build a template, right? And then you work people through the template, and then you work around that based on injuries or specific things that they need to work on before or after the session or whatever. So we took those ideas that were already being implemented in an athletic setting, and we brought those to the general public, right? So it was almost like starting in your realm, performance training, and then moving it down and making it work for like everyday, adults that don't play sports anymore. But it was the same thing. It was like movement patterns, and it was like, okay, if this, then that, and using tools like functional movement screen, which came from athletics, but using those to with our adults. So we basically just dumbed down, for lack of better terms, we dumbed down the adult the performance training to work with regular adults. And we shifted our personal training from one-on-one to, 4 to 6 with one coach. And we kept our boot camps as well. And so we did well with that for probably 15 years of doing both. And I think when you came to visit, we were doing a little bit of the personal training and the boot camp style, at the same time. And so, and by the way, I'll never forget that.
After burn boot camp?
Yes. After there was Afterburn, and then we built one that was more strength based. Then we built one that was for beginners. So we had all these different kinds, right? I think you guys did foundations and Afterburn.
Yeah.
But just for any listeners that know Carlos, he's a great dude, and he's really an animal for working out. So, they were like, hey, let's meet in the morning and work out. I was like, okay. So I met him up there, and it's like, we pulled all the equipment out in the parking lot, and like we were pushing cars and flipping tires and sledgehammers and farmers carries and all the stuff that at the time was like cutting edge, like not cutting edge, but it wasn't being used very often, right? In normal fitness programs. And I will have to admit that Carlos kicked everyone's ass, including mine. Like he was a beast out there pushing the car. I was done. I was laying on the concrete. He was still pushing the SUV around the parking lot. So. I'll never forget that day. It just destroyed me.
at the time, for us, was our first experience with slam share and tires. So we come from like the traditional gym full of machines, and we get to that world that you can do lots of these things and cool stuff at the moment. So imagine we were like pumped out and excited to do the stuff.
Yeah. You guys did good. I think there was one of you, I can't remember his name, but he couldn't figure out how to hammer. And I think you were picking on him, and you were like, wait, have you never hammered anything before? Like, don't swing it like that. Swing it like this, like you're going to hit something. It was like over your head, like a real hammer, it was awesome. So we had a great time. But, since you left, as you know, Carlos, we've just continued to refine the same systems, right, that we were doing. And we ended up going to a licensing model, which was kind of like a franchising light. Like, we didn't have our brand on the front door. Like it wasn't called Alloy as a facility. So it was still whatever the facility kept their name, but then we gave them all the systems to power it. And we ended up with a couple thousand gyms. I think you guys are one of the early adopters, but we ended up with like a couple thousand gyms worldwide that we worked with. And then eventually we decided just last year to go from a license model to a true franchise, which means it will be like Alloy on the front door, sort of like an Orange Theory, right? Like this is on the front door. And it's all based on what you mentioned, which is that small group personal training. Because there's a lot of, at least in the United States, there's a whole lot of brands that do boot camps and, big groups and metabolic training and heart rate and all that. All that's great. But there's so many of those here now that it was our idea to take the thing that we do that's unique and different and make that the franchise. And that was the personal training side of it. So yeah, man, all that was like 26 years in the making, all those easy steps, but that's where we are now. And other than this virus that's slowed everything down for everyone, right? We're doing well. So we've sold, I think 8 franchises now. And so we're just waiting to start getting them trained up. And, it's a slow growing process. We have to be careful about who our partners are at first and make sure they're successful and all that. But we're really excited to continue to teach the same concepts that we worked with you guys on, just the next version, if you will, of that.
And I've been following your work since I was there, and I'm trying to implement some of the things you guys doing. And like in Portugal, as you know, we are the big chains are the ones that everybody goes, and we still have boot camps. We have boot camps. Not as so many in the States, but I think the major thing is 1-on-1, still 1-on-1 or 2-to-1. And I recently I had the opportunity to have my small studio or be inside a football club that permits me to have my own studio, explore. And I start to do like the small group training. And it has been very challenging, I will say, because I think people don't have that open mind to share the same space. Even when I explain they will have their own training program, they will be their own road to this their goals. I think people still don't get it, or still don't want to share like the space with the other ones. Even when we explain the price will be low for them, everybody, it's a win-win situation for everybody. But how do you break that or cut that mentality of one-on-one and I want my own personal training? Because most of the time, as you know, the personal training is more than accounting repetition, and we focus more on results. And as you say, we treat them like athletes, right? FMES, and we have our structure, pillar preparation, strength block, ESD block, and people still don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. So when we moved from one-on-one training to small group, that's the same challenge that we had. And we had a very busy, schedule with one-on-one. We were doing around 3,000 one-on-one sessions a month. So it was crazy volume of one-on-one. And we said, we're going to switch our whole business from one-on-one. All our personal training is going to go to small group. And it was not easy. It took us a year to get everyone from one-on-one to small group. Now, we didn't have as much problem with new people coming in once we changed it, because it was just like, they weren't coming in to buy a certain service. They were coming in, to your words, to buy results. And we would then say, well, this is how we do things. And they would just do it, right? But it took a while to get to that point. So I think if you have customers now that are in one-on-one, that you want to switch to small group, which is exactly what I would do, by the way, if I was an individual personal trainer. Here's how personal training usually works. So we'll do a side note here for a minute. Like, I'm doing 1 hour one-on-one training. Let's say I'm a coach, and let's say in the States, it's $70 an hour. And then I want to raise my rates to $80 an hour, right? Because that's the only way to make more money, because I can't create any more time. And so that's maybe too expensive of a rate increase. But if I took my clients from 1 hour to half an hour, now I can probably have a $40 half hour rate, right? And I can do 2 of those now, and that's $80, right? And so that's why people went to half hours. And that's where we were when we made our switch, because that would allow us to make more per hour for every coach and for our business. And so when we switched to the 2 to 4, it would essentially double our capacity, right? So now we could train 4 people in an hour instead of just 2, which is exactly what I would do if I was an individual trainer right now in Portugal and I was working at a health club or something, or strength coach, and I was doing lots of one-on-one training. I would work really hard to get my clients into groups of, probably start with just 4 people, right? Because even if I'm doing one-on-one personal training for 30 minutes, having 4 people now doubles my capacity for each hour, right? And so what we did is we just approached them and asked them just to try it. Because most people will say, there's some perception, like you said, that personal training means that there's one coach with just me the whole time, and they're going to get my weights and hand them to me, and they're going to get me a towel. And it was more about the service that was provided than it was the program and the results, which kind of makes you wonder, like, what are they really buying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so we were nervous about, well, when we switch to this new program, we're going to lose some of that intimacy. Like, people will be upset that we're not getting their towel or hearing all of their stories and telling them our stories about our weekend, right? And so all we said was, we had each coach go to their clients and just say, look, we're going to try something different. You're not going to pay any more money. Certainly if you're doing 30-minute one-on-one training, it's going to be about the same. But we're going to be able to give you more service, right? We need more time with you so we can do the dynamic warm-up and some corrective exercises and a better metabolic finisher. And if you show up, 5 minutes late, it's not going to ruin your whole session because you only had 30 minutes, right? So there's all these reasons technically why we were going to do it. And when you're going to make a change like that, you have to answer 2 questions for people. Why are we doing this? So why? And then what's in it for me? And so they want you to tell them why you're doing it, like where you came up with the idea, and then what's in it for them, the client, right? And so for us, it was, we found a new way to do this. We're going to try this new format that we've learned that's very popular. We just said, we went to a seminar and we learned this, and now we're going to try this, right? And then we said the upside for you is you're going to get more service for your money. You're just going to have to split your time with some other people. And then the important thing was, because the existing trainers had good relationships with their clients, is that you just ask them to try it for you. So imagine, you have one-on-one training clients or have had, and you know that you develop a really close relationship over time. And so to be able to ask them, hey, I know that you don't want to do this now, but would you just be willing to try it for me a couple of times to see what you think? And every time they tried it, they were okay with it, right? But it was the resistance to the idea of it was the hardest part. But once they actually did it, and you've probably experienced this also, for the people that say yes, they love it. It's like, there's a little bit of camaraderie there. There's the positive side of the group, and also the positive side of personal training. It's kind of the sweet spot between the two types of services. Have you seen that as well, Carlos? Is that what you've seen?
The experience I have, and the things I've been, I think I can say a success with that. First of all, where I create the environment, and people, like you said, start to speaking with each other, and they will start to know, like, okay, this is my hour, this is my group, and I start to make friendship with them. So they don't want to miss the workout because their friends are going, and also they start to compete with each other. Like, if it's 10 reps, I'm not going to fail. So right. they go one after each other, and what I notice is that group will stay very close. It's my group. It's the group that I work out together, and they start to create friendship and connection with them and with the coach, so they don't want to give up. And the other thing that I think it's good, it's with the money you pay for 1 hour, imagine it's 60 or 70 euros an hour. If you split that, you can go 1 or 2, 3 times to the gym instead of one with one-on-one personal training that probably will go one more time to the gym alone, and maybe and you go there, or you go to the classes. But with this system, you allow the person to train at least, and I have persons who train with me or 2 or 3 times a week. So in terms of results, you are creating more chance of getting them the result they want.
Yeah, 100% agree. And the way that we decided to even do this at all, Carlos, was something that you said is already happening in Portugal, which is people are training with partners, right? So like that started happening to us because we were getting really busy. And so my most popular coaches were training, they would be training someone and they would say, hey, I want to refer my friend here. And they'd say, well, I don't have any time available. Do you want to work out with them? And they were like, yeah, that'll work. And so they would pay a little bit less. The coach would make more money. The gym would make more money. And it was just more fun. And so we were like, wait a minute, there's something there, right? And so if we could just get that from 2, which seemed to work really easy, most trainers will do some partner training already. We could just get that to 4 and make a system around it. They wouldn't have to know each other, but that's only going to last for a few sessions. They do get to know each other, like you said. Like we've had groups of 4 and now 6 that have been together for years, that they are so worried about their partners. And like if their partner doesn't show up, in our systems, yeah, exactly. Like in our systems, if someone doesn't show up to a workout, the trainer has a shift, and after the shift, they call the people and be like, hey, are you okay? What happened? We didn't see you today. It's almost not necessary anymore because the other people in the group will reach out to that person and be like, hey, where were you today? Right. And so the accountability is so much higher because it's not just to the coach or the facility, it's also to the other people. Yeah, exactly. And so all of a sudden you have like double the accountability partners, right? And so there's all these really cool things that we found out by running it for a while. The hardest part for coaches is to make up their own mind that it's really as good as one-on-one, because if they're nervous about it or they don't really believe it, it won't come across when they sell it as the same, right? And they'll really struggle to get the message across. That's why, 3 years down the road, even though we were the only ones in our market servicing personal training in a group setting, we were just so confident about it because we had seen the transition from all one-on-one to this and how positive it had been on results and culture, friendships, and adherence to the program and all the good things that came out of it that we were worried about. And then when we sat down with people, we'd say, oh, this is a million times better. We did one-on-one training for 10 years. This is so much better and it's less expensive. So this is what you need to do. And it was always, no one ever said no at that point. They just really believed us because we believed it also. So anybody that's listening that is doubtful about this, I can only tell you what our experiences are, but also all the gyms that we've worked with worldwide, it really works well. So you just have to trust the other people that have done it and really just go for it, right? And you have to really believe it to sell it. And then once it starts happening, it will prove to you that it's successful, and it will just continue to pick up, momentum. And then over time, it will be no problem for you to sell it. It's just hard to break through the first few groups, right?
And do you put everybody in the same group, for example? Sometimes what happens is, and I try to move them, or because it's difficult for one coach when we have like imagine four people or three people, and we bring one person more on board, and that person don't have the level of the other group. And sometimes it becomes difficult because we have to give more attention to that people to explain the exercises, because the other ones are a little bit autonomous. And sometimes it depends on the group, like you said, because I have persons that they are okay. This is the workout. We have 6 reps of squats, bench press, boom, go. And I can stay focused with more them. But sometimes that one, they start to feel that, it doesn't care. So you guys split the persons through the evaluation, or you put everybody and we just try to, as a coach, I have to do more extra work or extra effort. I would say extra effort to put everybody happy in the group.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we put anybody in the group, no matter if they're new or regardless of their fitness level. And the reason that we do that is really from our business standpoint. It would be too difficult to always try to level people together. We just want people to be able to get whatever time that they want, and then we want to just put them in the group and not have to worry about it. So the way that we handle that is we have, at any given time, the coaches all have 3 versions of the workout, right? And I know that people don't always fall into 3 categories, but it gets us close.
Yeah.
So imagine beginner, intermediate, and advanced as an example, right? And so an example of that might be like the first combination of the exercises might be upper body pushing and lower body hip, right? So let's say it's a deadlift, which would be, we would focus hard on that movement because it's more complex, or hip dominant, let's just say, right? And the upper body press movement might be like a push-up, right? So if you look at the 3 levels, then the lowest level might do just a hip bridge on the floor, and that might be your beginner. So they're doing a hip bridge, which is the lowest level of a hip dominant. Then we might be doing a kettlebell deadlift, even from a limited range of motion to a box or something for the middle. And the most advanced might be doing a trap bar deadlift heavy, right? And so the 2 of the groups might be doing 5x5s, and the lower end group is always doing 3 sets of 10 because neurologically they can't do 5 anyway, right? And so then they're supersetting with push-ups. So you've got one person doing 3 sets of 10 hip bridges, one person doing 5x5 limited range kettlebell deadlifts, and one person doing heavy trap bar deadlifts. And they don't really feel like they're doing the same thing at all, but you and I know it's just a hip dominant movement, 12 degrees separated, right? And so there's these buckets that we create that make it easier on the coaches. And then we do the same thing for the pushing movement, right? So it's like, okay, weighted push-ups with a 50-pound sandbag, regular push-ups, or elevated push-ups to a box or a bar,
Right.
or knee push-ups or something. It doesn't really feel the same. And so what's really key is that you don't run this like a team training workout, right?
Exactly.
Is that everyone has their own experience going. Like, don't set the clock and do 30 seconds of this, then have everybody switch. That feels a lot like a boot camp. Let them do sets and reps. So you might have somebody who's finishing a little bit early, their combination. You move them on to the next one. And, it's kind of nice to have them finishing throughout the session different exercises. And that gives you a little bit of face time to be able to say, like, okay, Carlos, are you done with that combo? Good. Okay, next, come over here. You're going to be doing this. And the other people are still just kind of wrapping up, back and forth. So the hardest part is when you're getting them started, right? It's like making sure everybody like, all right, here's what everyone's doing today. And we find it's really helpful to have people in that setting when they've been used to doing one-on-one, come in early, do the warm-up perhaps on their own, like we have it on the TV, like do your dynamic warm-up on your own. And then typically people won't all show up in front of you at the same time. Like you have somebody that gets there 5 minutes early and you're like, okay, great, come on over, right? And you get them started. And what that does is it gives you that little bit of time to say something like, Carlos, how are you feeling today? You're like, good. I'm like, awesome. I've got a great workout for you. You're going to love it. We're going to go a little bit heavy on deadlifts today. I know you like those. So here's what I want you to do. And then once you get that person started, then it's just, the flow is easy, right? The hard part is like that you don't want to have everyone standing in front of you like a class and be saying, okay, everyone, here's what we're doing today. You do it this way, you do it that way. You know, it's confusing. It's nice to have a little bit of that. Now, to address your point about coaching people at different levels, and we've experienced that as well, is we find that the people that are more advanced don't need as much hand-holding, I think is what you said, but you still need to pay attention, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the art of coaching from your, you know, from your other certifications, right? And like, is it a Winkleman that talks about art of coaching, right? It's like, you know, there's an art to being able to tell somebody like you, Carlos, okay, Carlos, you're going to do weighted pull-ups for 5, and then you're doing double kettlebell front squats, right? I can be then over coaching a brand new customer. First of all, I'm going to have like that new customer, those versions of the workouts are going to be self-limiting movements, so they're not that difficult to perform, so there's not too much coaching involved. But I'll go over and touch them lightly on the shoulder and say, hey, you're doing a great job. Take a break when you need to. Grab some water. Do you need anything? They're like, no, I'm doing good. You're doing fantastic, right? But then I would look over to you doing pull-ups, and I'd be like, Carlos, is that all you're going to use? You know, grab another 5 kilos, bro. Like, what are you doing? You're sandbagging on me. And you're like, get out of here. I'm like, it's not like I don't see you. I see you right over there sandbagging. And why are you doing that? And those deadlifts look like crap. You know, stick your butt out more, whatever that is. All that tells you, Carlos, is that he sees me. I don't need to put my hands on you necessarily, but I know exactly what you're doing. And that's all that you need to know as an advanced client, right? Yeah, so there's an art to like talking softly and touching a new person, right? Maybe coming at, you know, challenging someone who's more advanced in a friendly manner because you probably know them well because they've been there a while. So there's an art to how to like do that. It's a little bit like bartending, right? Where you're like, what do you want? This guy wants a beer. This guy wants a whiskey. This guy needs a margarita. And you're just like, so you're people that have that type of mentality and can manage crowds that way do really well in this setting.
Yeah, I've been experienced that one, and I think one of the people like and join us. It's because of that. It's and sometimes I had already clients that just give me the workout, stay with them. So like no.
Well, you know what's funny, Carlos? The guy, like when we took us, I said it took us a year to transfer. There was one guy who was the one who, when we originally said we're going to small group, he's like, I'm not going to do it. Like, you guys are, he was really upset. Like, we're doing something dirty. We're stealing money. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we're trying to give you more service for less money, but he just was resistant, right? So 1 year later, almost to the day, he's in the gym and he walks to the desk and he's asked to, it's like a Tuesday, and he's asking to schedule for Friday. And he says, all right, what do you guys have Friday at 5 o'clock? And so the person at the desk is looking and they're like, all right, we can do 5. And he said, all right, well, how many people are in the group? Because I don't want to come in unless the group is full. So here's a guy who said he would never work out with other people. He doesn't like strangers. He doesn't want to be working out. But once he experienced it, now he's like the client that you said, like, I don't want you talking to me. Just tell me what to do, but stay away from me. Like, look at someone else. Quit bothering me, you know? And it's a little bit of banter between the coach and client, you know, like sports, right? Like, you know, you coach young teams, they're doing push-ups, you turn around, they stop, you know, you turn back around, they start doing push-ups. There's a little bit of that type of fun relationship that develops as a coach and a client, as opposed to like a one-on-one, which is more like emotional support partner and client, right? It's a different nature of the relationship, but you can actually do both if you do it right. But yeah, there's definitely an art to it. Yeah, you just have to practice it.
And I'm still trying to implement like a wellness questionnaire in the morning, because I think it's important. Even like imagine and because I'm almost alone on this process. I'm trying to bring coaches aboard with me, and it's been difficult because it's a new concept and they are used to one-on-one. They want to make lots of money, but they don't see the vision and the future. They can make it more money at hour, because the wellness, I think sometimes we forget to focus on the person. And with the wellness questionnaire in the morning, sometimes we can adapt the training and like, hey, you sleep well, so instead of 5 of 5, let's do this mobility exercise, or no. So I'm still trying to implement that thing on the gym. I don't know which format, if just because sometimes people don't want to write on paper, or, it's.
You know what we have now that we use is we have an app, and it goes up to, it's on, you pull it, we have an iPad for each coach has an iPad. So when they come in for their shift, they pull the iPad and it has the tiles of the people that are on their schedule. So like in the upper left or upper right, it would say like Carlos, he is an advanced client. These are his goals. These are his injuries to avoid. And here's any extra notes. And you can leave notes after each session, right? Because you're right, even though we put people into 3 categories, beginner, intermediate, advanced, they don't always fall into those categories. So you already asked, like your health questionnaire, we have a playbook on how to coach a small group session. Mm-hmm. And part of that is asking people like, how are you feeling today? And even if someone is an advanced client, but they've just got back from a week of travel and they're dehydrated and they don't feel good, you're going to have to regress their exercises, So we would just say in that case, go from advanced to intermediate that day, right? And at least you have some guidelines. You have at least 3 categories that you can work off of. But sometimes people fall in between, or maybe it's an advanced client, but they have an injury, so they can't do overhead press that day. So you have to do a horizontal press. It's like, okay, the thing is, to run small group, you have to be a pretty technical coach, But most people that are doing one-on-one, they appreciate that. They like the technical coaching. If you're coming from like an Orange Theory or a boot camp where you're wearing a headset, and it's just like music and everything, that's fun, but that's not real personal training. That's just creating like a lot of energy around getting sweaty, right? But if you appreciate good movement and you consider yourself a good strength coach or a good personal training coach, this is what you'll enjoy doing, because you can still do that magic stuff just now in a group setting as opposed to having to be in a one-on-one setting.
And Rick, just to finish this part, and just so we can move on, because you only have 40 minutes, because I have to feed my babies.
Hey, where's the breastfeeding vest? I thought you'd be wearing one.
Protein shakes already. Protein shakes already.
I love it. I love it.
Do you guys? Do you guys switch programs every 6 months or 6 weeks? Sorry, 6 weeks or 8 weeks? And like you said, you can regress the exercise, so you can have people like doing strength and people doing weight loss in the same group, right?
Correct. Yep. So what we do, because we tried that. So when we first went from one-on-one to this setting, we were like, all right, we're going to build these sort of templated programs, and we'll go through phases, right? So we'll go like 6 weeks or whatever, and then we'll change it. But we're also dealing with the general public, and they like to do something different every time, right? And unfortunately, it's like, and some brands that are in the market advertise that, like different workout every time. And as you and I know, technically, you don't really need to do that. Like the highest level athletes in the world, you don't do different things because the basic things still work, right? Squats, deadlifts, or whatever. So, yeah, exactly. But adults do get bored. And so what we do is we take the template of push, pull, right? Upper body, hip and knee, lower body, which is push, pull also. Anti-extension, anti-rotational core. Okay, those are the 6 exercises that we're going to do. Now we'll build a beginner version, intermediate, or whatever. And then instead of doing like periodization like athletes would do, like in season, off season, all these like strength and then power and all these different phases that adults just they're not consistent enough to always do that. They take vacation or they go on holiday with the kids. So what we do is, it's called undulating periodization, but really it's not even really periodization. It's just changing the protocols. So in every week, we will emphasize certain patterns, right? So like maybe on Monday, the upper body push and the lower body pull are 5x5s, but the upper body pull and the knee dominant, right, as an example, are going to be 3x10s. So it's like almost like focus load, unload the others, right? And then on Wednesday, we flip that around. On Friday, we flip that around. And so what happens is if people just come 2 to 3 times a week, they always get some heavy lifting, they get some deloading, they get some high reps. There's always a metabolic finisher, so they leave hot and sweaty and burn some calories. So it's really the fine balance between the science that you and I know works and the customer experience that people want, right? And you're trying to balance those things out. So we've gotten away from like, phases and long templates and stuff like we would do with athletes. We still work with athletes. I'll give you an example. So Eric Cressy, right?
Yeah.
A great guy, really smart. I mean, probably the best coach for overhead athletes in the world, really, right? Great dude. And he will send us somebody in our area, because Atlanta, the city I'm in, is a big baseball city. So he'll send us a baseball player because he knows we can program. Well, we'll have the kid come in and we're like, all right, here's the deal. We're going to write you a specific program, but just keep in mind that you're going to be coming in and working out with like your mom's friends, right? Because we don't have a bunch of athletes, but we can do it all day long. And he'll be like, okay, cool. So we'll write out a very specific program just for him, and he'll come in and put his headset on, and he's in the small group, and he's still doing in some way push, pull, hip, knee, right? A version of it, but our coaches can even coach him because he needs way less hand-holding and entertainment than a client does. So as long as you understand that we're working off the same principles, and you take as much science as you can from your athletic training, and then you sort of modify it down to work with adults, and you take into account that they need to be entertained every time they come in. And, you know, they'll always say, our clients, as an example, will say, wow, we've never done this exercise before. This is so different. And it will be like a different version of an anti-rotational press, right? It's like, today your feet are split. And they're like, oh, I've never done this before. And we're just like, oh, you know, it's like, how can we take a plank and make it as interesting as possible? That's the kind of challenge we have with adults, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that answers it. But.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I'm already taking good notes.
Good. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're way ahead of it. So part of your challenge is, whether it be for coaches that you're working with or clients, is you're just really ahead of the game, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of early, but I think people are people. We all move the same way. And like we talked about before, like, it's great to be first. So I think you're in a really good spot to start driving this, and it will catch on eventually.
Yeah. How you guys deal with the current, with the COVID?
You know, we thankfully, when we went to franchising, we got rid of our large group and we just went back to personal training. And so it was not because we could foresee that there was going to be a virus, of course, but we were really lucky because now we're able to really control the experience and we can spread people out. And so we're doing things like, you know, we're leaving the doors slightly open. And then you can use different openers, like the openers that can use your forearm or your feet to open the door. So, okay, so no touching. We're making sure people keep distance between themselves. We're setting up stations, and we're making the workout so that people work out in their own space the whole time. Okay. So they're not sharing equipment and rotating around. And so they're all spread out. They're 6 feet apart. We have kind of like a station for them. And then we put like dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever they need in those stations. And they just stay in place the whole time. And then when we're done, we clean off all the equipment that was used, and the next group comes in. And so thankfully our groups are small because we're just doing personal training, and that's the way we're doing it. And so we're following all the guidelines other than wearing masks, because it's really hard to exercise with the mask. You just feel like you're suffocating, right? And
like,
so
if you think it's like you training in altitude with the mask.
Yeah, that was already, I should wear that altitude mask, right? It's like, I look like a Bane from Batman. Do you remember that? It's like, but yeah, it's a weird times, man. But listen, we're the first state in the United States to reopen, right? We could open as early as Friday. So all I know is it's a very polarizing topic. You have some people that will say, stay home or you're killing people, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, it makes you feel terrible. On the other end of the spectrum, people are like, it's nothing. It's all made up. It's a lie. And as you know, it's somewhere in between the two, right? It's like, we probably aren't all going to die, as we've seen statistically speaking, but it's more than a common cold, obviously. And so what we found is the people that kind of sit in the middle, that are rationally thinking about, okay, as long as I do these things, I'm mitigating my risks. They were really happy that we're open, right? They came in today. We were at about 50% capacity, which is great for day one. We've had a lot of interest from new customers, which is good. There's a guy down the street from me that owns a general service gym, and he's just controlling how many people he lets in. He said he sold more memberships in the first 3 days that he was reopened than he did in the last month before. So I think there is a segment of the population that we're not hearing from that's really excited to get out and get back to normal, as long as we're doing it safely, right?
And as you said, and I have the same opinion, is if we take care of ourselves and we respect like the guidelines, so don't be together, don't be large, too many people. So if we do our job, this will go low, because the problem is that transmission is very fast, and sometimes the healthcare, we don't have enough room to everybody. So I think, and I had already problems with my lungs, not in the past, and I know sometimes you can have to get help with assistant breathe. So that is a problem. So if you, like you said, and I'm thinking to do the same thing. So for example, my small space, I have 3 cages, and then I have outside space. So I only have 2 people working one cage in the middle, nobody the other one. If they bring shoes, only shoes for the gym. So if you take care of this, people will see that we are doing everything and we'll be safe, because I think now will be a big business for the small spaces, because the big gyms will be not so easy.
I don't see how they do it, man. You know, you've probably heard of Planet Fitness, which is a big brand in the state, and they have a low cost membership. It's like, you know, $10 US a month, right? Well,
we have the same year.
They have 10,000 members at each club in a relatively small space. So same thing with like your Orange Theories or whatnot, where you've got, you know, or boot camp businesses where you have treadmills that are like touching, or like imagine indoor cycling where part of the experience is being elbow to elbow with someone, right? If you change that and you spread the bikes 6 feet apart, there's only like 10 people in there, that would work, but the business model doesn't work, because the business model says you have to have 30 people in each class, not 10. So it's going to be really interesting to see how some of these brands are able to change, because the guidelines might be there for the foreseeable future, right? So if you know how to service small group personal training and know how to program well, you're in a really good spot right now. You know, that's a good place to be. If you're running a group experience with a lot of people in a small space, it's probably not a good place to be right now. So you're going to need to learn how to do things differently.
Especially in I know that here in Portugal, people are thinking like you can only be 1 hour at the gym, and then you have to move out. So imagine the queue have to be so people, it's like the supermarket. Like one comes out, you can go in.
Right. And people don't like to exercise enough. They're not going to wait for it. You know, it's hard enough to get them to the gym anyway. They're not going to stand outside and wait to exercise. So yeah, man, I don't know. It's going to be weird. But for us, we're at a maximum capacity of 12 people in the gym at one time. And so, I mean, even at that, we're close to the restrictions that we have here, which are 10 anyway. So we could easily keep it at 10 and be at 80% capacity and be fine. So we're in a good spot. So anybody that's listening, you know, for you guys, when you roll back out, I would say if you're a coach or a trainer, you might want to learn how to do the things we talked about today, because that's the business model moving forward that's going to do really well. Yeah.
Okay, Rick.
Yeah, man. Get back. Feed those kids. Let's go. Get back to work.
I will. Then I have to go put them on bed. Then I have to go to the computer to do all the work for tomorrow. It's crazy.
No rest for the wicked, as they say, my friend.
But, the happy thing is like 2 years like this, and after it will be a pleasure.
Like I said, the way that you're training and the way that you're servicing people, that is the right model moving forward. So I think you're only going to see more growth in the future.
I've been, and I want to say congratulations for all the work. I know that Aloy is not famous here in Portugal, but I try to make it, people know it, because your podcast is amazing, and I've been listening to the podcast and taking ideas of the model, because you are like a mentor on this part of the business, so I'm always following you and try to be on that way. So Rick, thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you again.
I hope we have been together like 3-4 years ago in Orlando. Yeah,
that's the last time we saw each other. Well, maybe next year.
Next year, but I want to go to Atlanta.
Yeah, come on. That'd be fun.
Your place.
That'd be great. We'd love to have you.
Okay, man.
All right, Carlos. We'll see you, buddy.
See you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.